Hey guys, welcome back to Thorough Capping. I wanted to put together a video to answer a few questions that I got during email. And for the last week or so, I've got probably two or three people asking me the same questions. And usually these questions do come out of the blue from people, and they're always the same questions. And they deal with target ratings and ability ratings, mainly the target rating. Because with the target rating, you are kind of backed against the wall into a corner as far as the number of pace lines you could use or go back and still be able to identify recent form. Whereas ability, a lot of times you could dig deep and find a race that's at today's distance or at a comparable pace, at a call in the race that's comparable to today's distance. It's not as difficult. And the questions I get are, one, how do you do a target rating on a horse that ran 5 furlongs or 5.5 furlongs? And what I want to do is I want to just go over a few of these things here. That being the first one, okay? If I'm doing a race with, let's say, 5.5 furlong race. So let's find one here. This is Saratoga for tomorrow. I will be doing a video later tonight on Saratoga. If it's a 6 furlong race today, and the only race I have to go by for target, hopefully we find one that's like this. If not, I will stop the video and I will find a old past performance that has something that's comparable to what I'm looking for. In fact, I'm going to do that right now and I will be right back. Okay, I found one. I'm going to give you an idea of example number one. Okay, this is a 5.5 furlong race on the turf. Okay, the adjustments I make automatically if the race is on turf, and let me write this down. If the typewriter here will work with me. There we go. If the race is on turf, then if the target rating is on dirt, I add 5 points. All right, and it's the opposite for turf to dirt. All right, so what I'm getting at is, if in this situation here, I have a 5.5 furlong race on the turf. If the only line I have to, and I wouldn't be playing this race, but anyway, I'm just using examples here. If the only line I have to use for, let's say, a target is this 5.5 furlong on dirt, what I'm going to do is when I get the rating, I'm going to add 5 to that rating to equate to the speed of the turf, which is faster than dirt, usually. Okay, primarily, generally the grass is faster than the dirt. I would add 5 to that rating. If it was the other way around, if this was a dirt race today, and I was comparing, I was doing a turf race here, I would do the same exact math, find the target rating, and then I would subtract 5 from it and use that as my target rating. So if you want to put that down in notes, for those of you that are starting to, or you've had a general understanding of now figuring out target ratings, then you can put that down. Now, number two is, the question I get a lot is, how do you get a target rating off a 5.5 or a 5 furlong race when normally I use a 1:08 as a standard time for my target and ability ratings? Well, when you have a race that's less than 6 furlongs, you're not going to get a 1:08 time. So what I do is, my standard is for 5 furlongs, I use 56 seconds as my standard. So what I'm getting at here is 56 would be a 100. So if this was a 56 and he was in first, he won the race, I wasn't taking anything off for lengths off, that'd be a 100. This example here, this is a 58-1. So that's actually 2 1/5 seconds off. So that would be an 11 plus another 11, 22. This horse's target rating would be a 78. Now, here's what else I do. If this here, for every half a furlong, the race is going to be a little bit faster. So, for example, 5 furlongs, the race is going to be run a little bit faster than a 5.5. So I also take off, for every half furlong, I take off 3 points. So that would be a -3. This target rating actually would be a 75. Okay, because it was done on a 5 furlong. Now, if every horse is 5 furlongs that we're looking at as far as getting a target rating, you don't have to do that. Okay, but the thing is, if I'm getting a 5 furlong time using 56 here and getting a target rating, and the next horse I'm getting it off of 5.5 furlongs, race is going to be slower because the energy is going to be used differently. I have to compensate by either adding 3 points to this one or subtracting 3 points to this one. So here's what I normally do. Now, hopefully you're following along. If you're not following along, please put this in the comments. If I'm totally unclear on this video, what I will do is I will do another video where I will break this down even more, because this isn't about showing you how to figure out target ratings. That is in the tutorials, but this is how to show, just to show you how to weave around, again, some of them intangibles. And one of those intangibles is I can't find a race at where I could get a target rating off of 108. Okay, and you don't need to when the race is less than 6 furlongs. We don't need a 6 furlong time anyway, so we don't want to pull a 6 furlong time. Let's say a horse. Let's see if there's one in here. There isn't, of course, but let's say this horse here was running in that 5.5 furlong race, or that 5 furlong race, or whatever it was. I don't want to get a full 6 furlong. I want to pull it off the 5 furlong mark. I don't want to pull it off a call that's further than today's distance. So if, let's say, I'm using hypothetical examples. There's only 3 horses in this race. And we're going, this was a 5 furlong. This is a 5.5. And this is a 5.5. Well, then I'm going to just use the 5.5 furlong times and get the target rating. So let's say it comes out to a 78 off of 5 furlongs. And let's say this one comes off to an 82 off of 5.5. And this one, we only have a 5 furlong to go by, and this is coming up to an this is coming off to up to a, let's say it's coming off up as a 79 at 5 furlongs. I want to subtract them 3 points to make up for that extra half, and that would be a 77 instead of a 80, or a 76 instead of a 79. In this case, I did it up here. It was a 78, and then I subtracted the 3 to make it a 75. So really, it's all about what you're comparing against. Okay, if this is the only horse, or the minority of the horses are 5 furlongs and the rest are 5.5, then you go and you just do the subtraction for those 2 horses instead of having to do the addition to the other 7 of them. And the same would go for a 6 furlong race. If you're pulling a 6 furlong target off of 7 of the 9 horses, and the other 2 horses are coming off of 5.5 furlong races, you pull the target off the 5.5, those 2 5.5 furlong races, and you subtract 3 points from those 5.5 horses to kind of get an equal playing field with the other ones that are 6 furlongs. What do I use for a standard time for 5.5 furlongs? I use a 102. So a 5.5 furlong race equals a 102 is the standard. That would be 100. Okay, a 102 would be 100. So if we had a 5.5 furlong race here, which we do, I would use a 102 as the standard time, That would be 3 3/5. That'd be 18. I mean, this was a terrible race, but then I'd add 18 to the 26. That'd be a 44. His target rating would be a 56. Okay, if I had to subtract or add, I would just do it to that. Okay, so I add points and subtract points for two things. The surface, that's a 5-point adjustment, turf. And I'm comparing, let's say, a turf race to today's dirt. I'm going to subtract 5, or I'm going to add 5 to the turf number. So if the turf came out to 76 as a target rating, and that's turf, and I want to compare that to a dirt number, it's going to be a 71 because I'm going to subtract 5. Okay, the next one I want to go over is, and please, feel free to throw as many questions as you have at me through email, thoroughcapping@gmail.com. In the Discord, if you haven't joined it yet, please, every one of my videos has a invite link to the Discord. You can throw your questions in there. Or if you throw them in the comment section, I don't check them as often, but when I do see them, I will get back to you in there as well. Here's another example. We have a mile race, okay? We have a mile race, and I'm pulling a target rating off of this horse, let's say, and I get 29, 39, 40, 50. That would be a 53 target rating. Now I get down to this horse, which is terrible. But let's say I wanted to go back one and say, you know what? I don't want to. This horse here popped a gate, checked, caved in. Terrible race. That's right there is a race I'm going to toss. Now, I don't want to go all the way back down to February 17th to get this target rate off the mile. I want to use the mile 16th. But the mile 16th, again, the energy is distributed a little bit differently, so that the target rating is going to be a little bit lower than normal. So here's what I'm going to do in this. First of all, I'm only worried about right around the top of the stretch area, so I'm going to get rid of this last call. It's a mile 16th. Here's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do the normal 108. This is 35. That would be a 63. But because of the extra distance here, a mile 16th compared to a mile, I'm going to add 3. I'm going to make that a 66. Because the next horse, I'm probably going to be looking at a mile to get a target rating. Or somewhere else down the line, one of these horses, I'm going to be getting a target rating off a mile race. And I want to make sure that I kind of even the playing field a little bit. Because this target rating was taken off a mile 16th. If it's a longer than a mile 16th, let's say it's a mile and an eighth, I might add another 2 points and I'll make it 5. And that's why I said before, the more intangibles that you run into, the more you have a chance of skewing the numbers and not coming out with correct data in the end. Like Delmar's card today, it's not finished yet. We do have a few value plays that hit and came in, and I will do a recap tonight. But at the same time, there were a lot of intangibles in that race. There were a lot of adjusting, and I think I mentioned that in my video yesterday. I had to do a lot of different adding 3 points here, subtracting 3, add 5, do an estimate here, go 2 races back or 3 races back to pull a target out. The more you have to do that, the more you got to question how accurate are you going to be here in the end. And sometimes those races are just... you're better off just passing on those races. I know it's tough sometimes. You commit to a card, you download, you pay your $1 or whatever, and you download a Brisnet PP for a certain track. The last thing you want to do is look at them races and say, man, I can't even bet I got to pass on 6 of the 10. So you do your best you can. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to show you some ways to maneuver around some of these things. Another example would be down here. This is a mile on the turf. This target rating that I just pulled was actually on the dirt. So if I want to include this horse into my data and put him into my grid and not just toss him, Okay, and again, I'm not looking at this race right now like I'm handicapping it. I'm not saying, oh, 30-1, I'm going to toss this horse. He's never ran on turf, blah blah. I'm just hypothetically, if I was going to use this horse and move him on, what I want to do is I want to take that 66 now, and being that it was on dirt, I want to add 5 to that. Okay, so we already added 3 because of the extra distance, and now I want to add another 5. I want to change that target rating to a 71 to equate it to the turf surface, and then I will take my target Briz from that 71. That would be a 150 opposed to a 145 if I were to just take the 66 and add it to the 79. So that'd be a 71 150. To me, I feel like I'm giving this horse the best opportunity to show me that he has the ability to be a contender. Okay, here's another example now. Here we got a mile on the turf, and I could pull a target rating straight up. Here's a mile on the turf. This would be a 30, a 70. The target Briz would be a 146. Now I look down here and I say, okay, I'm going to pull an ability, but I don't have a race now to go by at a mile on the turf. And I don't want to toss this horse, obviously. I mean, you look at the form here. You look at the other things that are standing out. I want to toss this horse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the closest distance to the mile that I can find. I'm going to pull the target rating as I would for that distance. So that would be a 108. That'd be 3. That'd be a 95. I'm going to subtract 5 points for the 2 turns going to the 1. Okay, this is only a 1-turn race. This being a 2-turn race, I'm going to subtract 5. That would be a 90 for the ability rather than a 95. Okay, so the other time we adjust now is when we go from 2 turns to 1, we're subtracting 5. When we're doing we're adding 5. When we're doing a 1 turn and today's 2 turns, we got to subtract 5. Okay, the opposite would be if today was 6 furlongs and instead of a mile and it was 1 turn and this was the target race, I would go 30. That would be a 70. I would add 5, 75, because this was off of a 2-turn race. And I want to try to give this horse the best shot I have of showing me the best data he possibly can. Now we got a mile 16th on the turf. So we don't have to do any adjusting for surface, okay? But we do want to be able to adjust to that extra 16th with the 3 points. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pull my normal target, 23. It's going to stay as 23.77, but I want to add 3 points to it and make it an 80. Because today is a mile and this was a mile 16th. The other option I have is to look back and say, okay, do I want to use this race instead? Then the question you ask yourself is, which of these 2 races now is giving this horse the best opportunity to show me a better target rating? We go here. This is a 25, 28. That's a 71. And I'm not making any adjustments to it. That's going to stay as a 71. This was an 80. So I would probably just say I'm going to use this 80 and then pull my target Briz off of that 80, 157, and then come down here and find a ability rating off of one of these races. Either this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one. And the question I have for you, and obviously you're not going to be able to answer it live, would be, why those races? Actually, I missed one. And hopefully your answer right now was because these are the races that were run at today's distance. And we don't have to do any adjustment. In a perfect world, we don't have to make any adjustments. When you get to that race that you have 0 adjustments to make, and that's why I like 6 furlong dirt races so much. With 6 furlong dirt races, you find so many horses that are coming off of 6 furlongs on the dirt, and they have plenty of back races at that distance as well, to where you can pull solid target and ability numbers. The turf has a tendency to throw things off now, because certain tracks, certain times a year they don't run on the turf, and then you're getting horses that haven't run in 3 or 4 months, and the last time they ran was on dirt because it was too cold to run on the turf, and so on. And it's like the numbers get skewed a little bit. But I would pull my ability off, my best ability race off of here, these four, which would be the 18, which would be this race right here, the 82. His ability would be an 82, and so on. Okay? So, I mean, hopefully there was some clarity there. I was clear on this. I did not script this ahead of time. I just kind of did this on the fly, basically because of some of the emails I've gotten. It's a lot easier to, I think the people, the subscribers who have emailed me, and I've responded with this information here, I think they've been clear. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that there's anybody that's watching this and has been using these methods. If they have the same questions, I'm kind of clearing it up for them there. And this is another reason why it's good to set a lot of time aside to be able to handicap, and not, put yourself in a situation where you only have an hour to handicap a card full of 10 races, and think that you're going to be able to do all of this accurately and make your adjustments and come out with, correct data and accurate figures. Okay, the next video I want to do, which I will be doing soon, maybe tomorrow, is talking about the same topic, target ratings, but when we're talking about races that were run like either very fast or very slow based on the Brisnet pace calls here, like the double digits. All right, and you'll run into some like this one right here, plus 25, plus 21. You're going to get a real fast 6 furlong, 3/4 time to draw a target or ability rating off of. But at the same time, I recommend that race just becomes either a toss, and you find something that's in single digits, such as these here, or you make an adjustment to your number. And the adjustment I would make is, in a mile 16th race, and I might not even have to do a video now, because I'm going to go over it right now, and I might as well tie this into this video. I'm going to take that strike away. And let's say, for example, this was the target race. I'm going to strike out these 2 first races like they never even happened. And for whatever reason, I was forced to use this race here as my target race. What do? I can go 10, 4, and 14 and give this horse the 86 and ignore the speed and the pace of that race. Or I could say, all right, I got to make some sort of adjustment because all these other horses are running against single-digit biases here, and they're going to come out with like a 72, 71, and all of a sudden this horse is coming out with an 86. That's one of the reasons why we do the exceeding the ability, okay? If we have a horse that has an 86 target and a 77 ability rating, after you searched all the ability races, the best you came up was a 77. That's why we take that target number and bring it back down to a 77, and we don't leave it at an 86. That's one of the reasons. Because that 86 doesn't account for the speed of that particular race. But the other thing you could do is being that this is the second call of this race, a mile 16th, this is the second call, we could take that 21 and cut it in half. And I'll explain why we cut it in half. So if I cut that in half, let's say I take 10 off of there, and I add 10 full ticks, which would make that which is 2 full seconds, and make that a 112 and 4, and then run my target off of that, which would be a 76 instead of an 86. And you might say, well, why 10? Why a half instead of the whole 21? Why don't we just add 4 1/5 seconds to this 110 and make it a 114, 115? Because if you're going to say that single digits are okay, but yet double digits are not, then you're really not doing this horse any justice by penalizing him by taking the whole 21 and adding it to here, when you're leaving another horse that's at a +6 or a +9, you're leaving him where he's at. So a good adjustment you can make is just, you know what, take off 10 or take off as many as you need to bring him down to single digits. In this case, it would be 12. That would bring him down to a +9, and then add 12 to that, which would be 2.2 and 2/5 seconds, which would make that a 113 and 1. Or the other thing is, obviously, if you can, pass that race and go back to one that's single digits, or just use that race and allow the what do you call it, the theory of exceeding, fall into place. Maybe he doesn't exceed his ability. Maybe you do this and it comes out to an 86, and you run another race back here and he's got an 89. The first thing you want to do is, when you find that 89, make sure it's not another race where it's +20 something. If it's single digits, then you can keep it 86, 89. All right, that's the freedom you have when you're handicapping and you're using these methods. And I would prefer that you guys get comfortable with your own way of manipulating. My goal is to show you how to use these, how to compute these figures and calculate them. But it's your, you got to take ownership of when you see something that doesn't look right. Like, man, every single horse in this race is in the 70s, and this horse is at an 88. And then you look at that race that he had an 88 off of, and it was the only race that had, biases into 20 here, or variance into 20s. You might want to second guess and say, okay, what do I want to do here? Do I want to find a different race to use as a target? Do I want to cut it in half, add some time here, and so on? All right, so we're moving on to a half hour right now. I'm going to stop. And please, bombard me with questions if you have them. But please do not ask me, well, how do you figure out a target rating, or how do you figure out an ability rating? That is all explained in the tutorials. And the links to the tutorials, the product link, is found underneath of every video. And remember, we have 3 more left that are you're getting 20% off. You're getting it for $26, the full thorough capping tutorial with the downloadable grids, as well as the matrix system 100 slide tutorial as well. And by request, if you want to follow the figures, I'll give you another tutorial complimentary, and that's about 40 slides there. So thanks for tuning in. Like I said, I did this video on a whim. This wasn't planned. I did not script it ahead of time. If it's unclear, please just put in the comments, Dave, can you please do this video over again and script it, because you were kind of going all over the place, and I will do that. All right? Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.